How are you doing? Let me go ahead and start off with the horn. This is episode number 5. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. This is the best hour of your week. We're so glad that you can join us for the final show of 2023. It's been a long year, but man, we made it, right? Super consistent, making it through 95 consecutive episodes. I think that's a big deal. I think that deserves the horn. So you know where to come. You know what time to do it every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. But that's just the show. The show is made up of the people because, as we always say, we the people. Well, I'm already here, but we're missing one because we means plural. Mark Boatwright Frost.
Peace
Hello,
out.
hello.
Hey, I'm confused though.
Huh.
You said it was the last episode of the year. By my calendar, we have one more to do.
Oh, that is true. I'm ahead of myself a little bit.
Yeah, we have episode 96 next week, and this one only works if we do that one.
You know what? That's a true story. I stand corrected. The second to the last episode of the year.
51 episodes this year. 51.
Wow. Again, the horn. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, so next week will be the 52nd episode. We have been here every single week.
That's right. Very blessed and honored to be able to do this with you, sir.
Yep. And so this week's is going to be a recap of what we've talked about this year.
Oh, okay.
So you want to pull up your, and I'm going to do the same thing, pull up the playlist so we can take a look at what we've done this year.
Let's see. Are you able to pull it up on your side?
Yeah, I just have to go to Conduit and then hit playlists.
Okay.
And then I go down to where it's hidden in your mix and find it again.
Is it hidden?
Well, it's just there's so many things, and sometime and the cover keeps changing, so I have to guess which one it is.
Oh, let me share this with everyone. I'll share it with you, but I'll share it with everyone. It is actually not hidden. I've actually done some magic at the tail end of the year. So I'm going to share my screen, and you didn't know this, but this is good. So again, this is the conduit, right? Everything appears here. And as you look and you will see, here is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. You can see 3 people are watching on YouTube. We're broadcasting on 2 YouTube channels, 3 Facebook channels, and Twitch, I believe. But
are you counting Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces as a Facebook channel?
Because
I have a page that is getting more and more followers all the time that I keep all the current posts on.
Oh, got you. So it's in 4 places.
Yes.
And so as such, this new thing came out on YouTube. And so we are now under podcast. So if you click podcast, you will see Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. Now, I need to go in and make sure all the episodes are in there.
Okay.
But you can find us all in one great spot. You don't have to search and scroll through or anything like that.
That's cool. But the thing that always catches me is the picture on there, the shield with the tipping points over it. That's not what I think of as Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. So I have to readjust my thinking.
As I go
looking for it.
Well, you have access in there, sir. So you change that when you
when I get a chance to. Okay. Actually, I do not have access to the playlists.
No, you have manager access to the channel.
Do I? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just have to show you how to do it.
Okay, so let's go to the Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces playlist and go back and take a flashback of this year.
All right, let's see. Ooh, there's a lot of shows on here. Is it in alphabetical order?
Not that I've ever seen, but there it is right there, though.
There we go.
Yeah.
So just FYI, folks, there's over, I think, 1,400 podcasts on this channel, which is massive.
Okay, so let's go down to January of this year, which Probably somewhere around 45 or
53.
50.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. 45. All right.
No, Courtney was, I think Courtney was one of the first ones this year.
See the date on that. That was, give us a date, please.
28th, December 28th.
That was December 28th? Okay.
Yeah, right on the first line.
Right.
Okay. So the one after Courtney was the
first line.
11 months ago. 11 months ago. So that's right. That would be January.
Okay.
Why it's doing it that way, I have no idea. January
2023.
Yeah, January 4th, 2023. All right. So taking a look at that, the first episode of this year was, you want to scan up, it was about
climate change.
Climate change. So we just basically started this year talking about climate change. And this entire year, 51 episodes, we have been talking about water and the forthcoming water crisis. We have been talking about food, and we have talking about food crises. We have been talking about heat and heat crises. We have not even mentioned Cascadia Rising, which is what we used to talk about a lot. And I guarantee you, once it happens, there will be radio silence for a very long time, but a whole lot of people will be talking about it.
Facts.
And we have been going through this, but the one difference between us telling you that there are problems is that we have focused every single episode on solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Marwan and I have spent 51 weeks talking about solutions to existing problems that are affecting all of us. 51 weeks. And this episode being the holiday episode, I want to talk about what we all got from those. I mean, because we're not seeing a lot of action even still. They just finished COP28 in Dubai, and it was hosted by one of the largest oil producers in the Middle East. Many people were dubious of it, and it turned out to be pretty dubious to start with. All of the information that came out of there were a lot of, I don't know enough to say that they were empty promises and empty things, but I don't think anything's going to come of this that didn't already come from things before. We made 10, 15 years ago, we made great progress in Kyoto. We had the Paris Accords. We've had all of these things that basically nobody has taken action on. As a matter of fact, we seem to be going backwards in a lot of things. These are issues that people care about. A lot of people. Unfortunately, many of the people most affected by it aren't rich, powerful people.
True.
They are your next door neighbors. They are the homeless people in your neighborhood that are getting more and more of them all of the time. Our economy is slowly spiraling out of control. We stop even reporting things that are meaningful in a lot of ways to it. We are looking at a slow collapse of a dinosaur. And we're standing in its shadow, which means we're in the fall zone, just in case you didn't get that analogy. We've spent 51 weeks talking about this. And you know something? All of the things we talked about, all of those big problems that are overwhelming you, have a solution. The question is, are you willing to do what it takes to implement that solution? Because Marwan and I can't do it alone. We can't. There aren't enough people, single people, individually out there to do it alone. And the minute somebody stands up in front and says, I am going to take care of this for you, I'm going to lead you, they're lying to you. Okay? Let's just set that right out there. They're lying to you. They aren't going to take care of it any more than you are. They just want your money or your vote. The only way this is going to get fixed The only way, the myriad of problems, which are, by the way, as we have pointed out for 51 episodes, all interconnected. They have one solution. You want to hear the solution, Marwan?
Tell me.
Come together, bring your puzzle piece, have conversations, set priorities, and work together to change it. Because we the people isn't some right-wing slogan for people who want tyranny. We the people are the first three words of the US Constitution, a document that supports we the people above all else.
Come together right now.
Oh, hold it. You don't want to get blacklisted for, or copyright hit.
Well, man, if I sound that much like the song, I'll take the copyright hit.
But anyway, this is 51 weeks of talking about this, folks. We show up every Sunday, and by the way, we had a crowd Sunday.
Oh, really?
We had a crowd on Sunday.
Nice.
People really engaged and becoming part of the solution, and heard people's stories. Robin Henderson from Manette came down. I've been trying to get together with him because he's been a mover and shaker in the community forever.
Okay.
And he came down. He's a small businessman in the area, and he's been working on community. And every time he starts getting together, he's seen the co-opting of the idea over and over and over again whenever momentum starts happening. So we had Selena and her husband and their kids there. We were all talking about, ways to move forward, about the gardens. We've gotten a lot of people interested in our garden projects.
Yeah.
The issue is, this is our format. We have Facebook pages that nobody's reading right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces, which too few people watch. We talk in public frequently. I've been having conversations. I've had so many conversations the last week that I somewhat lost my voice. So that's why I'm a little gravelly today. But we've got,
You sound good.
Okay. We've been having conversations with bus drivers. We've been having conversations with people, baristas, people who work in coffee shops. We have had conversations with people around who do gardening, who want to do gardening, and they all think it's a great idea. But when it comes to talking to their neighbors, it all fades away.
Do they say why?
No, they don't want to admit that they don't want to do it because they're afraid to talk to their neighbors. Everyone, our society has taught us to be afraid. Our society has taught us that we can't fail. We can't try because we might make a mistake. And mistakes are fatal. Mistakes are the way we learn. Mistakes are the way we overcome. To think that the mistake is the problem, or not succeeding the first time is a problem, I will tell you, from a master of not succeeding and keeping moving forward, eventually you succeed. Because either you learn the right way to do it, or you just do it often enough that people start hearing you.
Are you saying you're a master of failure? Is that what you're saying to me?
Anybody who succeeds at something is.
That's just funny how you put it. You know what really has me worried about the failure point is things like Cascadia Rising and some of the other things that we're seeing in today's climate. Is I'm not ready. If the earthquake hit today, I'm in bad shape. And I talk about it every week. I'm doing things to prepare, and even I'm behind. And so, there's this I have the sense of urgency, but it's like, man, there's so much to do, but it doesn't keep me from saying, well, you know what? There's too much to do. I might as well just figure it out once it hits. I've got to keep chugging away and plugging away.
Well, I have an idea.
Sure.
And I'm going to hit you blind with this. Feel free to say no. But January 9th, and this is, by the way, the Kitsap County announced, the first Kitsap County official announcement, January 9th, 2024, at the West Side Improvement Club at 6 p.m., we will be holding Stone Soup. Price of entry is bringing something for the soup. You can bring cabbage, you can bring carrots, you can bring onions, you can bring anything you want, because we have, we're going to be making a vegetarian soup and a non-vegetarian soup. And the whole story of Stone Soup, as we have told on this channel before, is that when some hungry people came into a village and were refused food, they asked for a big cauldron, filled it full of water, and told everybody they were going to make stone soup. They started a fire. They put it in the town square. They had this boiling water. They put this river rock in it, and eventually everybody came out curious to see what the stone soup is that he's been playing up and playing up and playing up. This is it's going to be fabulous, but it'd be a little bit better if we had a carrot. Somebody dashed off and brought a couple carrots back. I said, it's perfect. It's almost perfect, but an onion would help more, and some garlic, and maybe a beef bone or something. And suddenly they, a little bit from each villager brought out there, provided this soup that fed the entire village for a week with just a little bit from each person. So we do stone soup because it's the way that we all come together. We each bring a little bit and we solve big problems. It's the brilliant model for what we've been pushing for 51 weeks, actually 2 years, to be honest.
Yeah.
So come to Stone Soup, and I'm challenging Marwan to build his go bag at Stone Soup as a demonstration for people.
Oh, okay. I like that.
So, and maybe give one away to somebody. You don't have to if you don't want to. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Well, maybe what we'll need to do then is for the rest of the episodes, we'll make some kind of an entry, or maybe we'll raffle it off there.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do one for the conduit and then one for the space there.
Yeah. And that way people can see how that's putting together. We're going to be doing some gardening discussions and pictures of Matthew's garden and what we're doing with it. We've got people donating. I've got Johnny Coffee over in the trails. We're going to be donating coffee, used coffee for the composting effort in all new gardens. I've got people saving cardboard for new gardening. We need to talk a little bit more with Woodland Park Zoo to see when their zoo is. I'm going to be hitting Marwan up for using his truck next time we go over, so we can bring a bunch of zoo back instead of just 5 buckets.
Zoo.
Yeah. So, and for those of you who weren't on the earlier episodes, Zoo is available seasonally from Woodland Park Zoo. It is a mixture of rhinoceros, giraffe, and zebra dew.
Pterodactyl, Godzilla.
Yeah. No, that would be blue and radioactive. But they're fed an organic diet, and they're herbivores, and they already compost it. So you just come in and shovel it out of the compost bins. So we are planning to use that. We've already used some of it on Matthew's garden. We're going to be using more of it. We're talking to the West Side Improvement Club to do they have a garden in the front. We're talking about doing the sheep mulching there. I've heard 2 things from them. The reason they don't have a garden up there is, first of all, the getting water down there is an issue, and we're going to be working on solving that problem in the early part of next year by doing rainwater capture. And
how much water do they need, Mark?
Well, it depends on the size of the garden. And what we were thinking about doing is building an awning at the edge near the basketball courts and have a corrugated plastic roof on it that will capture the water and pour it into rain barrels. And then we can just water the area, because I'm sure with the rain barrels and the average rainfall that we have now, we can fill those barrels up and pretty much be able to water the garden.
I'm just thinking, temporarily, if we had the rain barrels, could people, 5 or 6 people volunteer to bring water to keep the rain barrels filled?
Absolutely.
That'd be difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we can do that. And the whole point of these gardens is not to just create a garden so Matthew has food and vegetables in his front yard. It's a food forest for everyone to use to get food and to feed themselves and their families.
Well,
Um,
to that end, I was speaking with Deanne Jackson. Shout out to
yes,
Deanne. And one of the things that she talked about was, Salvation Army bought the building next door, Monica's Bar, and that is going to be what's the terminology that they used? It's a food bank, but it's where you get a shopping cart, you walk through, and you get things that are relevant to the indigent community there, right?
okay,
And so, wouldn't it be great for them to have fresh fruits and vegetables and things to pick
that
from these gardens?
absolutely, and that's all part of the plan. The more gardens we have, the greater the food supply here in Kitsap County. And not to be daddy downer here, but there are food shortages and crisis. We've talked about this. The only way to really to overcome the climate driven food shortages that we're going to be having is to grow locally, to
Mhm.
provide as much of our own food as we can. We have a secondary part of the plan for Food for All is to create a whole industry in Kitsap County around growing food for markets and really amp up the ability to grow food here. Part of the original charter for that we were writing is that a percentage somewhere north of 10% would be going to food lines and food centers and food banks and to feed the public. And in time of crisis, 100% of it goes to feeding the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. So food. We also are, I challenge anyone who watches this channel, anyone who doesn't watch the channel, anyone who's heard talks to somebody else. I challenge anyone to follow the strength of our power system. Our power comes through Gorst and across the Narrows Bridge. It comes from elsewhere. We are a peninsula. Anything happens to that, we are without power. And we are without power for a long time because while we have the infrastructure here, sort of, to provide power, we don't have the generation capability to provide power.
Mm.
And we don't do off grid homes very much because it's a lot of hoops to jump through. So I will tell you that resilient ecosystems gather together, grow together, and the Solar King of Kitsap are working together to put a package together so that next year, when the grant cycles come around again from our Department of Commerce, we're going to be looking for them to provide funding for thousands of low income housing to get solar and reduce their power bills and provide a model for the rest of Kitsap County so we can stop this nonsense of the solar being spread to people who can afford to buy it and get financing for it.
Yeah,
We need to
100%.
drive utility companies and PSE, if not PSE, then a public utility that might be here gets a public utility um, to do that, where we can put solar on people's roofs and charge for infrastructure as opposed to selling power. These are things that we've been working on. These are solutions. We need your voice. It's that simple. We're not asking you to come out and work the lines and feed people, though we would be happy to have you down to do that. We're asking for you to lend your voice, to bring your puzzle piece, to have your say, to ask your questions, to challenge our thinking so that it becomes a really strong project that can happen.
Mhm.
That's the solution. I know it doesn't make any sense to most people because that's not how we're taught things work. But let me tell you, after doing this for 40 years and focused on this for the last 20, it's how it works. It's not how we're taught it works. And there's a question there we need to ask. Why are we taught things that don't matter and not taught things that will actually fix the problems? There's an answer there. The answer is status quo. People who have the power like status quo. Why don't we just come together and have a revolution? Well, we've done that. We've done that thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of times. And you know what happens? It comes back to the same place it started at. different people in charge, same exact model.
You know, during this revolution, as I get more activated in things that I haven't done in the past and build my knowledge base, one of the things, to your point a few seconds ago, is if you're paying attention to what city council says, they are quick to say, we're the city. The city's not in the business of solving homelessness or running shelters, right? It's like, so okay, well then what is the city in the business to do? Right?
Well, not
It's-
fixing potholes, I'll tell you that much.
so we have to do it for ourselves, right?
Mhm.
Because they're not going to do it for us. And for many of us, we're not engaged in what happens at the city council level. But and to that end, just to uh, take a detour, Mark shared with me. I think he shared. I don't know if you shared this publicly, but there are some folks that you are aware of that are in some very deplorable conditions. I took that to the audit committee. They were definitely alarmed by that. They believe that that is not the space for it. I will put that link in the chat so people can see where that is. They did send me some city codes in regards to where they think that belongs. And I shared with them, it's very difficult because on the one hand, you have good folks that are owning their homes and wanting to sublet to help pay for their prescriptions and to survive day to day. And at the same time, they're able to provide a space for someone else who can't afford housing on their own. Unfortunately, there's some bad seeds in there, and they are preying on people that are economically strained and may also have some physical disabilities and everything else. And they know that they have them over a barrel, and they're taking advantage of it. The problem is if they blow the whistle and if they say something, they can lose what little they have, and there's no alternative. So they're in this catch 22.
Yep.
Do we just deal with it,
So,
suffer
so,
in silence?
so to catch you up,
Mhm.
so this person that I'm familiar with, we moved them out of one bad situation, and apparently right into another bad situation. The landlord, at which my have conversations with people in the streets that I talk to everybody. This is more common than not.
Uh-huh.
People are just trying to rake in their overhead and more from putting it. I know of one place in Bremerton that has had lots of unpermitted building done to
Wow.
maximize people being able to stay in the place and pay the overhead. So these people are making their living off of this, not sharing their homes with their heart, but the landlord over my friend came to them and said that you need to be out in 3 days or I'm going to have the sheriffs here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is illegal. She can't do that. But it has created a environment of fear where a person who's already challenged is now no longer able to even think because of the fear and the pressure generated by the person who owns the home where she lives. And granted, I will tell you that she has not paid her last rent, not that she doesn't have it, but she now needs to move out somewhere and there's no place she can find to move. And she would have been happy to pay the rent, except that the landlord had already started a process of trying to get her out.
What's also unfortunate is some of the feedback that I got from the audit committee meeting was, maybe
Not our problem.
well, no, go to BHA and go to KCR. The problem is as a nonprofit that works in this field, right? And talking with other EDs, there are scores and scores and scores of people that still cannot pay their rent.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we get to the point where we blow the whistle on some of these folks, that it's already bad. And people aren't actually seeing how bad it is. We have folks that are part of G2 that are going to KCR every morning at 5:30 to try to get their rent paid from a program. And they're only taking the first 5 or 6 people and saying, hey, try again tomorrow. Well, first off, can I get public transportation to get there at 5:30? Two, if I have a job or other requirements, am I able to get to those? So you
Yeah.
have these challenges, and now I'm literally spending every morning. How stressful is that? And if I'm in recovery, that's very triggering, right?
Yeah.
And I need stability so that I can continue off, not being in the street, not, making choices that are going to be detrimental to me, my family, and to society at large. And I'm trying to get ahead, but you're making it so difficult. There's got to be a better system in place. So all of these folks that are in the space, your friend, right, is not in the street right now, but it's such a horrible condition.
Well,
Once
and
she
only
blows
half
the
an inch
whistle,
away from the street.
yeah, but I'm saying once she blows the whistle, there's no recourse for her to, land in a safe space.
So, two things. I will get to my punchline here in just a moment. But I do want to say Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays. I want to remind everybody that pink slips are usually given out at Christmas time.
They are. Why is that, sir?
Year-end tax breaks for the corporations.
And bonuses for the CEOs, right?
Yep. There is nothing humane or human in any of the decisions of corporations. We don't matter. And we have trickled down. This is where trickle down works. Is trickled down through everybody that's how that's how we work with each other. That's how we live with each other. Now, to change that dynamic, to change that narrative, because it's not working for anybody. Let's be honest. No one is thriving except for the very few. And it doesn't matter how much of an asshole you are or how much you push down on others, it's not getting you better. And at some point it catches up with you. And that's the way it is. But if we come together, we can do things like, Marwan and I had this conversation. We mentioned this. No, he and I was talking about it last week, and he said that my pitch was, I think that if we had a branch of our cities and our county that actually would go out and do overviews of these kinds of places when they get the complaints, and they see how people live and they see how that works and how the violations are, they can find these people in order to pay for their jobs, and like OSHA did for a while in the 90s. And if it's really bad, the cities and counties can use eminent domain to take the houses over and make them real housing for those people.
Are you talking about someone who's like renting a bedroom in their house to take it over in the domain?
The city can take it over as an eminent domain and put their own manager in place, and it becomes a property that becomes housing that the city oversees and does it right. But they said they won't do that because they're very touchy about it. On the other hand, we, the people, could change their minds.
Yeah, well, I might be a little touchy about that one too. You got to explain that one a little bit more, Mark. I mean, if I'm renting a room out and that person feels like I'm not giving them a good deal, they can go to the city and complain, and the city takes my house for eminent domain.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about our conversation after last week.
Oh, you got to explain that one because I'm like, okay, I'm not for that.
Well, I'm actually trying to. You informed me last week that there were actual codes and permits that people have to have in order to do what these folks are doing.
Right.
If they aren't doing that, if they're just doing this under the radar and they're abusing the people and scaring the people and threatening the people, and in one case, the previous place that this person lived was essentially a converted closet.
Mm-hmm.
And, if that's the case, it's an unsafe living situation and they need to be fined. And if it's really horrible and the building is viable, that building should be taken over and used as housing, which is what they were using it for, but do it right. Permit it and everything else. Or educate the landlord in what they need to do to be legal.
I get what you're saying. That's just, for me, that's a bridge too far, right? A fine, if you're breaking the law, maybe you can be charged as something. But to take their home, like there would have to be so many steps before that
Well, yeah, but we could help write those steps so we could help answer the questions and figure out when it becomes too far and when it doesn't. But there is too little low income housing, which creates the environment where these types of businesses thrive.
Well, you know what? Let me push back on that and say that that could be a solution if you
Mhm.
went down that road and you got to A through Y and that was Z, right? The most extreme piece is you
Yeah.
lose your property. However, the thing that we advocate for is water for all,
Mhm.
power for all, housing for all. Everyone should have housing. We can afford to provide housing for everyone. That this is not an issue, that people do not need to illegally sublet their space so that they can try to, make ends meet from their prescriptions, right? Which
Mhm.
means that we have to address the fact that these, pharmaceutical companies are charging exorbitant prices for people's medication. And some things should be illegal, right? Like
Well, and
during
let's step back along with that. The medications is one piece of it, but private equity companies are buying property, artificially inflating the market value, and then turning around and charging exorbitant rents. And when was the last time a low income housing or even an affordable housing project was done in Kitsap County?
I mean, well, they're done all the time. Actually, they're just our definition of affordable or low income is not a definition for actual humans.
Which is kind of funny because the government's definition of poverty is so low that nobody can live in it, and yet they don't seem to have a definition of a market value unless it comes from HUD, which I will tell you is artificially inflated.
Well, and even when they double the poverty level, it's still too low.
Yes. So the problem is that there's no one holding anybody accountable.
And that's what I was getting at when you
Yeah.
jumped in there. When COVID hit and you had folks going and buying up toilet paper and paper towels, and then their garage is full and they started reselling. You know, law enforcement went after those folks and started charging them. But we experience that every day with our medication, with our housing. So there's already laws on the books. We need to enforce the laws that are already there. We actually don't need new laws. We have everything we need already set. We just have to uh, follow the law.
You know,
What is fair?
I don't disagree with you.
What's fair to charge for rent?
Okay, so we can base it on market value, which, according to HUD in Kitsap County, and was quoted to me by one of the organizations involved in this, in trying to solve this problem, that HUD has stated that the average income for rentals in Kitsap County is based on a four-person family making $104,000 a year. How many people in the couples in Kitsap County are making $104,000 a year? And is that really the average of all the people? 266, almost 300,000 people in Kitsap County. Is a couple making $104,000 the average? Because that's what they're basing your rent on, what
I
they
think
can afford.
I think that it probably is. I share with people all the time because we're downtown on Park, and during COVID, right, there were a lot of folks that couldn't pay their rent. Folks were definitely suffering, and it was a big situation. At the same time, I saw new vehicle purchases, new boats. Some people were thriving. They were buying properties during COVID, and so there's this different levels of class, and some of these higher levels of class are so high that that's what's dragging it up. We just don't see it. Like out in the Key Peninsula. There's helicopter pads out there for many of the properties out there, and it's like, what? And it's like, yeah, it's out there. You're just not in the know, buddy. You have to ask the price. You're in the wrong spot. I'm in the wrong spot, clearly.
So then maybe it's the way they do the average then. What is this, a bell curve? the very few that are at the very top control it for everybody else, because I tell you, that does not work for most people.
Well, no, and I think that's just how they calculate it, right? If we look at the billionaires, if you took Elon and what's his
Well,
name from Amazon
Bill Gates owns property in Union.
and Bill Gates, yes, absolutely. I hear there's a restaurant out there that I need to go and check out over there in Grapeview that's supposed to be just wonderful. But those 3 or 4 folks, have the same, wealth as 30 and 40% of the bottom part of the United
Oh,
States
closer to
combined.
60% easily.
So to me, that's why it's so easy for the average to be so skewed, right? You need to take those outliers and throw them out,
Yeah,
and
and then
then
find out what
do
it
it.
is.
Yeah.
And when you come down to people making 50, and census says that the average income in Kitsap County, not don't say for 2 people making $52,000 a year. The census says that the average income in Kitsap County is $52,000 a year. That's a better average
Mhm.
to start with. So when you look at that, base rent on that, affordable housing would then be about, let's see, 52,000. That's 52 weeks. That's $1,000 a week, $4,000 a month. If you're doing rent as a quarter of your income, which is what it was supposed to be before it got inflated to a third of your income, it would be $1,000 a month.
But even if it was a third, folks would be in far better shape. Many
Than they
people
are
are
now.
paying upwards of 75
$2,000.
to 80%
Yeah,
for their rent.
yeah. So if rent in Kitsap County, affordable rent in Kitsap County, was between 1,000 and 1,600, we could probably manage that, and we can start, using some resources for other things. But the rents are 1,600 to 2,500, and that puts it out of a lot of people's range. You want to know about homelessness? Homelessness means not having a home. If you can't afford to have a home, what do you do?
Well, you live out of a closet
Or
from a
your car?
renter that's taking
Yeah.
advantage of you, right?
Yep.
You're living in a room with a niece or a nephew. You're in a bad relationship because that's stability. And so it's a toxic relationship, but you've got to make it work. And I'm speaking from experience. Most people think of women,
Mhm.
but there are a lot of men. We there's a term called hobosexual. And so in my 20s, right, I lived off of the ability to sexually please people so that I could have a roof over my head. And that's what it was. And there are lots of men that live that way.
And I
And we
live,
go,
yeah, I lived for 18 months with my wife and daughter in a storage shed on someone's property,
mm,
and considered ourselves lucky to be there and have that to get back on our feet, because there just wasn't the income to support our ability to rent homes. And that was just at the beginning of the rentals going up. We lost ours because the landlord was going to sell it.
well, I mean, this was back in the 90s. So we're
Yeah,
talking about 91 for me.
this is
I
mid
think that's when I
2000s.
have graduated high school, right? I'm
Yeah,
a ward of the state, coming out of the foster care system. And it's like, well, you can't afford to live anywhere, right? You don't have any rental history. You're pretty much a kid, right? You're turning 18, 17 at the time. So that's it, right? If
which
I don't
brings it.
have the ability to be in relationship with someone, then I don't have a roof over my head. I've slept in my car on several occasions through my 20s, and that's how we were able to make it, and that's hidden. That's never talked about. But this has been an issue since my time and before. But I'm giving you my experience from the 90s.
And this goes back to what we started this conversation with,
Hmm.
is that the system is set up to not support you. The system is set up to support the people at the top of the economic chain. And I know a lot of anarchists. I'm going to just tell you my thoughts on anarchy. I know a lot of anarchists said, well, let's take it away from all of them and kill all of the rules. Yeah, that works until somebody with a bigger stick comes along. Doesn't work on a long term. We have to have social contracts. We have to have an agreement. And we actually have a pretty darn good one in the U.S. Constitution. We just need to come together and make sure that the people that are supposedly supporting the Constitution understand that it's about us, not about them, and not about their donors, and not about the gazillionaires, not the people who use phallic symbols and rockets to show that they're good people and all of the rest of that stuff. Just
what's the last thing you said?
Well, the whole joke. I don't know if you saw all the memes about the Amazon rocket, Blue Origins or whatever they call it, launched. It looked like a giant phallic symbol. There's a lot of comparison to Jeff Bezos trying to show off how big his is.
So I'm sending a text, right? So my mind is split, but I heard phallus and rocket, and I'm like, did I hear that correctly? Like,
you did.
You got to repeat that last sentence. Well, what are we talking about right now?
Well, it says, the people that are at the top of the economic chain. I won't say the top of the food chain because it's just not true. They are on the top of the economic chain. And here is the real punchline of that. As it all comes down, they have farther to fall, but they're going to fall with the rest of us.
Yep.
And so holding them up and boosting their egos and watching them play with their toys while the rest of us starve, well, they're going to be starving with us because they don't get it. We're all interconnected. It's a closed system. And, there you are. I will tell you, let's talk about space for a minute, because this is something that's been bugging me for a while. And I talked a little bit about it last week in the presentation. We are very close to having the technology to mine asteroids. NASA's already figured bunches of it out. As our resources dwindle, there are asteroids very close relative in terms of space distance to the Earth. And they've been there forever and ever. There are clouds of them. And they oftentimes contain ice, which is water-based. They have platinum, they have gold, they have iron, they have probably things we've never seen before. And as we take all of the resources from our planet and create this massive crisis that we're facing, and we're wondering how we're going to have stuff in the future in order to live into the future, we have a resource not very far away. And the one thing that I'm happy about all of the new interest in space is, while they're talking about colonizing Mars, which is a fantasy that cannot be realized inside of the next century because we don't have the technology to terraform it, let alone take all the stuff we need to get there or mine there and manufacture there. All of these things that create the infrastructure don't exist and probably won't exist for a very long time. So we're talking about people creating excitement around nonsense. Does that sound familiar? Like every day? But we do have the technology, very close to having the technology with a bit of investment to go do asteroid mining.
Well, a lot of these things are all a distraction, right?
90% of them.
That is again, my big fear is so many of us are trying to hang on, and it has us living from a scarcity mindset. And if we stop, if we get off the wheel, if we speak out against the engine because you feel like there's no one at the wheel, that we are going to lose our place in line of where we're trying to hold on, or the rung on the ladder that we're on. We're just above falling totally into the ocean. So we're just going to hang on and we're say, hey, you know what? I can't do anything else. I feel bad for the people that are drowning, but I'm just going to hang here and hopefully I can just hang on until the end, right? And someone picks up the ladder out of the water and we're good. It's like, no one's coming. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah. Well, no, you don't. This is the fear is there of that. And I agree with you. But if we come together, we're not doing it by ourselves, and we have a much better situation with greater security.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So Stone Soup is going to be happening on the 9th. You're welcome to come. I please message us on the Kids Up Resiliency Project page so that we know you're coming, or message us on the program or something, so that we know that you're coming, because we need to provide food for everybody, and so we need to kind of balance that whole thing. If you want to volunteer and help set things up, message us at mark@reseco.org. Marwan will put that information up there, and we'll get you into a list of people to help us set up the Stone Soup. We're going to be very active in 2024. And the reason we're doing this one today is because next week we're going to be talking about 2024 and how we can come together and make real progress, and how we're doing it already.
Something that came into my mind and why I got off my couch and came to the computer is I was thinking, one of the ways that we could solve homelessness is we've got these huge cruise ships that just cruise around. And I was like, oh, how big are these things? So I Googled how big the largest cruise ship is 2,759 staterooms, including passenger cabins and suites. So you can solve homelessness, have everyone in a room. You've got kitchen, you've got hospital, you have everything on the ship. Just put it in dock. This thing is $500 million to $1 billion for the largest ones. It's already there. You don't have to build anything new, or you could take the time to really solve the situation, but you got everything there. Got its own ecosystem.
So interesting that you bring that up, because if you remember, almost this time last year, my friend Courtney Platt was on talking about the cruise industry and what they're doing to the Cayman Islands.
It's just not hard. We just have to think outside the box and not be afraid to try something different.
Yep. And what happens if, God forbid I'm going to say this out loud, what happens if we come together and decide that, the cruise industry is not our friend and isn't a business we really want to support all that much, and then they have all of these surplus ships?
Well, what happens after they age out, right? Even our military ages out, our aircraft carriers and the frigates and everything else. So eventually you're going to need a new cruise ship. You've got these billionaires that create these massive, super luxury yachts. I don't know if you ever watched YouTube and looked at like Jeff Bezos's yacht and some of these other folks, right? We can solve it in so many different ways.
Right? Hotels that have gone out of business?
Yeah, hotels that have gone out of business. But think of how powerful that would be. It's in dock, so it's in typically a city area, right? If you're thinking like Seattle, right? Folks have access to work. Obviously, the jobs would be created to sustain the ship itself, right? Either in the kitchen or laundry services and things like that. So it can build its own ecosystem. You have opportunity for training. You've got everything there. You have everything there. And it's not like, oh, where are we going to buy the land and break ground and who's going to fund this and build this? Already set.
Yeah, there still has to be money for it, but you can put together a business plan. And I'm going to say this now. Ideas are wonderful things.
Before you say it, Mark, there's money for it, right? We are renting through the county. I believe we pay, what is it? Is it $10,000 a month? It's either $10,000 or $100,000 a month for the Quality Inn, right? And that's to house 100 people. So we have the money,
right? We have to create the will,
and
which is where I was going to go with this. Is that lots of people throw out ideas. The difference between throwing out an idea and making something happen is coming together and creating the will to make it happen. I hear about all the people saying, well, why don't you just use the Harrison Hospital and house a bunch of people there? Well, there's thousands of reasons, and if you did the research and asked the question, just didn't want to just ask the question, you'd find out that hospitals are horribly toxic places, and that the land it is on would have to have some serious Superfund work done
I
for it to be able to
disagree. I
work.
disagree. I disagree. I disagree.
Okay.
First off, during COVID, people were getting COVID shots at Harrison, first and foremost, right? Previous to that, I was in the emergency room in the last decade getting shots for migraines in that emergency room.
Yeah, and Kira was there too when she got hit by a truck.
So you can't tell me that I'm unhoused in the weather and in the elements, and it's worse for me to be outside than it is to be sitting inside the emergency room. That's one. Hold on, let me finish. I got a complete thought on this because I just had a conversation with someone from Bremerton Housing Authority on this on Sunday. Not only that, you don't have to commandeer the entire hospital. If you believe there's asbestos and everything else, you just take a little wing, right? Furthermore, if that's a problem, then you know what? You've got a parking garage. You've got the parking lot. The parking garage is open. You put some makeshift walls, whether it's tarps or whatever, so it keeps the wind from blowing in, and you create your pallet city in one of the parking garages. If you just don't do the parking lot at all, right? It's like we're so close-minded. Oh, well, we can't do this. And now all of a sudden it's a safety thing. We can't let people sleep inside the old Sizzler because, well, what if they hurt themselves and they sue? You sign a waiver, right? When you ride a roller coaster, you are waiving your right in case something happens. It's just such common sense. I mean, to me, it is,
but then you get lawyers involved, which is where
that's what I'm saying. No, you don't get lawyers involved, and that's the bullshit. Again, it's we the people.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that the fear of liability is what they use to stop anything moving forward. But on the other hand, in Harrison's case, there are a few other things. Maybe a wing would be useful, but it's people are suggesting all or nothing, and I agree that you could do other things. But there was Legionnaires in the water table. There have been there's radiation that's used in that place. There's all kinds of things you have to look at, and until that's done, we don't know what's safe and what's not safe. But
we don't know what's safe in our pipes that are over 100 years old, right? I guess we all should sue. My grandmother and my brother died in that hospital, so maybe some of what they drank had to do with the Legionnaire's disease, right? I mean, it's like, come on, you got to do something. And all nothing is ridiculous.
But people dying because we did something is an issue. I think
they're dying now on the street. I've gone to the funeral for 9 people last month.
I agree with you.
Dying now, and they're living in the most atrocious conditions for humanity. We get more pissed off when people have their damn dog outside, right? And I don't have the affinity to pets that other people do. When I grew up, my dog was chained in the backyard outside, didn't come inside unless it was extremely cold, right? Culturally, it's an animal. But today, folks treat their animals, they put them on a higher pedestal than they do humans, right? But, oh, no. All of a sudden, we have all these excuses. To me, it's such bullshit. It's such bullshit.
I don't agree. I don't disagree with you. What I'm saying, though, is it needs the will of the people coming together to get anything done and to overcome that. It has to be more. My point where I was heading with this is it has to be more than an idea. It has to become more than just throwing it out at somewhere and saying something and feel good about yourself. You have to talk to other people and build it, which is actually where I was going with that whole thing.
Well, I've been doing that for years. We definitely need more people to do it, to come and lend their voice so we can actually make stuff happen instead of letting city council tell us over and over again, well, the city's not in the business of managing shelters or doing this and that.
So I would challenge their statement there. It isn't currently, but if people come together, we can change the charter.
Yes, or vote in people that are willing to say, in this city, this is what we're going to do. And we don't go and look and see what other cities are doing because we can't come up with the answers ourselves, right? We can't be so novel to come up with an idea and try something We have to look at our sister city or look around the country and see what other people
For
did
those
in their broken ass system that doesn't work, and let's adopt the same thing like the ordinance that was passed.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, last Wednesday at city council, they turned down the shelter because the mayor brought forth something that was incomplete and not ready. And even if they approved it, that shelter on Kitsap Way would not be ready when Salvation Army closes. So we're going to be having this discussion at the end of April because reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Stupid.
It's all about putting it off, moving it down the line.
But let's throw a bunch of money in a bad way where we're getting the minimum instead of maximizing the minimum of what we have.
We don't disagree. Again, we do not disagree. We have different approaches to it, and we say it different ways.
Now, this stuff fires me up.
I get it.
We're
really?
helping
I would never have noticed.
Man, we're helping people to the capacity. We have to say no to so many people and say we don't have an answer. We're advocating. We go to the meetings. We broadcast this. We give the ideas. We try to provide the support. Oh, well, what are we going to do if we put them out? That's kind of out far. Well, you got an agency that can provide transportation. What's your next excuse? Oh, well, yada yada yada. And so we're trying to overcome as many no's and just the laissez-faire attitude that folks have, right?
So let me close this off because we're at time.
Sure. You get this off now. I'm ready to go for another hour.
Yeah. So let's talk about what would happen if people came together and we brought our puzzle pieces and we had a conversation and we want to solve this, and this is how it needs to be solved, and we come forward with a complete plan. And when they start saying no to the complete plan, I said, this plan makes sense. This plan is funded. This plan has every aspect it is. So what you're really saying is you don't want to help the people and just call them out on it and replace them.
So my thought is this, right? Is that is going to take time for sure.
Yes.
And even with the knowledge that I have, I don't have all the expertise in regards to where's the money coming from, how much money is there, and or what can the city do now without passing something that has to go through, their city attorneys and everything else. Like
what worse, blocking somebody else's effort.
What's the latitudes that we have, right? So what we need, what I tried to do by running, was be in a position to open up their minds and have folks say, hey, you know what? The status quo hasn't worked. It's not going to work. We're already fighting from behind. We have to do something radical and novel. And if that fails, okay. But, going down the road, you said it a few weeks ago, the train tracks are out. We can see it. We can't keep going down the road talking about, well, maybe someone will build the tracks on the other side, or maybe the train will stop on its own and everything will be okay. It's like none of those things are going to happen.
So I have the final word then.
Go ahead.
How do we overcome centuries of education that have got us to this, to say that way, to look for somebody else to solve the problem for us, because we have been taught that someone will come forward and save us. Yet history says it's never happened.
Oh, am I not supposed to say anything? Because it's like this the final word. What a cliffhanger.
And we'll talk more about that next week. And so we'll talk more about that next week.
Yep. We'll let that be the final word. Ponder on that, folks, because I'm ready to answer that question. I think that's a good one. State it one more time for folks.
So when we have been educated for centuries that someone is going to save our butt, that all information is already written and we don't have to come up with anything new, that we don't need to be working together because, we have to be, somebody else is already doing it. We don't have to think about it. We should be good little workers. How do we overcome that to bring people together to solve the problems?
How do we come together to solve the problems? All right, I'm just typing that in the chat. Question mark, boom. when we've been educated for centuries to not work together or government will fix it, how do we come together to solve the problems? That is the question. That is the final word. Happy holidays. Yippee-ki-yay. From last week. I thought this was going to be a happy episode, but no, we got to get fired up, right? That's the thing. We can be lulled to sleep by holidays and everything else. The urgency is there, and everybody is not privileged or blessed enough to have the holiday that many of us are going to have, however that is. And that holiday may be taking a hot shower and sleeping in a warm bed tonight, which I'm privileged to be able to do this evening. So, Merry Christmas, if that's what you celebrate. For Mark Boatwright Frost, I am Marwan Cameron. This is Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces. You're watching the Conduit Podcast Network. We will see you at 5 p.m. for City Council. Until then, ta-ta for now.